Over the past months, several astrological developments have aligned, and they all point towards the same threshold we are now entering. Today marks the entry of Chiron into Taurus, 2 days ahead of the summer solstice, and this closeness gives the turn into the second half of the year a particular flavor. Before that turn, a fuller look back over the months since the winter solstice, because everything that has unfolded so far leads directly into what begins now. This video gives you the full context behind the solstice and what it sets in motion for the months ahead. The year started with an unusual gathering of planets. Several personal planets joined Pluto in close succession at 3 degrees Aquarius, a concentration of energy at a single point that many felt as inner pressure or as the moment when a long-held pattern finally released its grip. January already set the tone for the entire year, well before the major transits of spring became active. The defining event of the first half year came in February, when Saturn joined Neptune at 0 degrees Aries for the first time in over 6,000 years at this exact point. 0 degrees Aries is the cosmic gap, the space between the completion of the entire zodiac and the very first impulse of Aries, pure potential before form begins. Saturn and Neptune together mean that vision takes on form and the dream becomes real, while Aries supplies the courage needed to step through. The window seated here stays with us until 2062, and some say even longer. It also lies close to Shead in Pegasus, a star linked to the threshold between worlds, the winged messenger that brings what is dreamed into form fully lived. One day before this conjunction on 19th February, the US government issued its directive for the full release of the UAP files. So the institutional disclosure began on the eve of the cosmic gap. On 17th of February, the Chinese Year of the Fire Horse also began. A bold departure and an untamed hunger for freedom, and this energy has been felt ever since. On 16th of March, 3i Atlas passed its closest point to Jupiter and has continued since on its hyperbolic path through the outer solar system. Over the summer, it disappears from view behind the sun, and when it returns to visibility in autumn, it will already lie beyond Saturn's orbit. It is the third interstellar visitor recorded so far, and the first to come with companion comets to seed information from far beyond our solar system. On 26th of April, Uranus made its final entry into Gemini, where it joined Alcyone, the brightest star of the Pleiades, at 0 degrees Gemini. This activation by the Great Awakener opens up Pleiadian codes of communication, and multidimensional thinking starts to feel like the new normal. In May, the asteroid Vesta entered Aries in sextile to Uranus and the Pleiades on the 13th. And on the 29th, Ceres entered Gemini in direct conjunction with the Pleiades. The sacred flame of personal calling and the nurturing principle were both active in the Pleiadian field, while Uranus still was in conjunction with Alcyone. The quality weaving through all of this Whatever is served with devotion now asks to be communicated, and communication nourishes others in turn. Running through this entire first half, disclosure, also a theme of Uranus in Gemini, has been unfolding on several fronts simultaneously. On the institutional level, on 8th May, the US government released the first Pursuit tranche, the first fully public UAP archive in US history, with decades of classified documents, footage, and audio made freely available for the first time. On 22nd May came the second tranche, 51 videos, including footage showing a craft that accelerates instantly and vanishes from the frame. And the third tranche was published on June 12th, 2026, and I believe it is just the tip of the iceberg, with much more to come. On the level of the Earth itself, crop circles, as every year, began appearing in Wiltshire in May, the densest crop circle region on Earth. On 15th of June, at the exact moment of the new moon in Gemini, a new formation appeared. I am currently looking at this one from a galactic astrology perspective and will be sharing a dedicated video on it very soon. So stay tuned. Within the exopolitical community, there is an expectation that formations appearing between now and August will bring explicit messages about extraterrestrial contact. On the entertainment level, around 10th of June, Spielberg's Disclosure Day opened in cinemas, one of the most anticipated blockbusters of the year, made for a mainstream audience. A film about first public contact with extraterrestrial civilizations, playing on thousands of screens worldwide, signals how far collective awareness has already traveled. All of this together is the half year of sowing. Everything visible now was planted in the months between December and today. On 21st June, the sun reaches its highest point in the northern hemisphere. Within the Western shamanic and astrological tradition, this is one of the 4 great threshold points of the year, the moment when light reaches its peak and begins to turn. At this point, the sun forms an opposition to the Galactic Centre and a square to the supergalactic center, and also forms a conjunction with both Orion and Polaris. This fixed star backdrop returns every year at the solstice, and that return is exactly where its meaning lies. Each year, this gateway between our solar system and the center of the galaxy opens again, with Orion as the door and Polaris as the point of orientation. The content that travels through this returning window changes each year, and this year it is the half year of sowing that travels through. And that is where the weight of the 2026 solstice truly lies. The sun's conjunction with Betelgeuse in Orion deserves a closer look, since Orion plays a role that reaches far beyond a striking shape in the night sky. Across cultures, Orion has been read as a gateway, and many sacred sites on Earth were aligned with it long before anyone wrote those alignments down. The pyramids of Giza mirror the belt of Orion. Temples and stone circles across continents face the rising of these stars. The relationship goes in both directions. The sky and the land have been in dialogue for a very long time, with Orion at the center of much of that exchange. Sacred sites were not merely inspired by the stars above them. They became active gateways between the earthly and the galactic, and Orion was often the bridge. Betelgeuse itself forms the shoulder of the hunter, a red supergiant nearing the end of its life and expected one day to end in a magnificent supernova in the sky. Across Greek, Arabic, Chinese, Hindu, Polynesian, Egyptian, and Native American traditions, this star has been linked to strength and to the integration of light and shadow. There is also a deeper layer that many who work with star memory have pointed towards. Soul records connected to a long resistance within the Orion region, an alliance formed among different peoples to support those suffering under forces that sought dominion over them. Souls connected to this memory often feel a natural pull towards justice and towards leading through example. They also tend to bring resilience and resourcefulness and a sense of humor that helps in difficult moments without dismissing their weight. This doorway opens again at the solstice. Leadership through integration becomes available now, paired with the courage to face light and shadow together and to work for what is fair, ready for anyone willing to receive it. Polaris, the North Star, has guided navigation for thousands of years as people have looked up and needed to find their way. Souls connected to Polaris often bring a perception that reaches beyond the purely physical, paired with a deep connection to nature and a sensitivity to subtle fields and frequencies. With the Sun conjunct Polaris at the solstice, this orientation becomes available collectively. An expanded perception that includes the unseen grows alongside healing work rooted in a relationship with the land, and telepathic and intuitive capacities begin to feel like a natural part of daily life for the wider collective. Chiron's entry into Taurus brings a conjunction with Alpheratz, the brightest star of Andromeda, and also part of the Great Square of Pegasus. Andromeda's mythology already points towards this pairing. Princess Andromeda was chained as a sacrifice and then set free. And the constellation keeps that story of liberation at its core. And therefore, those connected to Andromedan frequency often come into life with freedom as their deepest value, sometimes without recognizing it consciously for years. The mature Andromedan soul eventually discovers that the feeling of being trapped is a pattern stored in the body rather than a feature of external circumstance, and that the freedom searched for externally must be found from within. As Chiron, the wounded healer, joins this frequency, healing itself takes on an Andromedan quality. It becomes outgoing and charismatic, an expression of beauty and courage that naturally encourages others to recognize their own potential. Andromedan energy brings an appreciation for beauty and for the pleasures that life in form can offer. And this becomes part of the healing path itself, where joy and a sense of worth grow side by side. For anyone who resonates with this frequency, the years ahead with Chiron in Taurus may bring a gradual realization. The sense of being trapped is a pattern in the body, and Taurus, the sign of the body and of the earth, is exactly where this pattern now finds the chance to soften and release. While the Andromeda conjunction roots healing within, Chiron also forms an opposition to the Shapley Attractor, the densest known concentration of galaxies in the observable universe, a point so massive that even our own galactic center travels towards it. An opposition works differently from a conjunction. Old wounds around power, rejection, or visibility tend to surface through others and through the wider collective, with the world reflecting a piece of the self back rather than revealing that piece from within. Tension in the outer world becomes an invitation to recognize one's own truth and vulnerability as a doorway. And where pain and compassion join in that tension, presence itself becomes the bridge between the two poles. Chiron's entry into Taurus and the summer solstice fall within 2 days of each other, and both point in the same direction, from identity towards embodiment, and from the first step towards taking root. After years that placed visibility and courage at the center, this phase calls for a return to what truly sustains us: the body, the earth, values, the lineage that runs through each of us. This healing also reaches beyond inner reflection alone, because conflict in the outer world often becomes an invitation to recognize a piece of the self that has been waiting for attention closer to home. On 20th June, the evening before the solstice itself, I invite you to join a live solstice celebration, a moment to mark this threshold together before it turns. On 25th June, the 12 nights of wonder begin and run through the 6th of July. These 12 nights mirror the 12 weeks ahead until the autumn equinox, a time between times when past, present, and future draw close, and the seeds for the whole coming season can be planted with real intention. The next video is devoted entirely to what these nights offer and how to work with them. For now, mark these dates. The link to join the solstice celebration on the 20th and the 12 nights starting on the 25th is in the description below. To close, without summarizing what has already been said, Chiron has entered Taurus. The sun reaches its solstice point facing the galactic center, framed by Orion and Polaris, and everything sown across this first half of the year now begins to take root in its own ground. So here is a question worth keeping close before the 25th. Looking back over these past months, which part of you has been forming in the background? And what would it take for that part to find a place in your daily life?